The moment the first cry echoed through the delivery room, Harper Sullivan thought she might finally breathe again. After 37 hours of labor, 3 emergency alarms, and a terrifying drop in her blood pressure, her triplets were alive. Tiny, fragile, but alive. Tears blurred her vision as she reached out with a trembling hand, desperate to touch at least one of them. Instead, a pen and a stack of divorce papers were pushed into her line of sight. Cole Maddox, her husband, stood at the foot of the bed in a tailored charcoal suit, untouched by the chaos around them. His expression was cold, impatient, as if he were reviewing a contract at work, rather than watching his wife fight for her life. "Sign it, Harper," he said quietly. "Let's make this clean. Those babies, they're not mine." The words cut deeper than the surgical incision across her abdomen. Harper tried to lift her head, tried to speak, but her voice cracked into a whisper. "Cole, please, not now." But he had already placed the pen between her fingers. Her hand shook uncontrollably, not from fear, she had been afraid for months, but from the realization that the man she had loved for 7 years couldn't even wait until she left the operating table. He signed his own name with a swift, confident stroke. A nurse gasped, another turned away. The anesthesiologist muttered a curse under his breath. But Cole didn't flinch. He dropped the papers onto her blanket, leaned in and whispered, "Enjoy your new life with whoever fathered them," before walking toward the door. The room felt suddenly colder. Then, a knock. A delivery nurse stepped in, holding a newborn chart. She glanced at Cole, confusion tightening her brow. "Sir, before you leave, we need to confirm something." She looked down at the forms, then back at him. "Are you the father?" Cole froze mid-step. And what she said next made the entire room stop breathing. Harper Sullivan had spent most of her life being invisible, and for the longest time she believed it was safer that way. Growing up in a fading neighborhood on the outskirts of Boston, she learned early that dreams were fragile things, easily broken, easily mocked, easily taken away. Her mother worked double shifts as a waitress. Her father disappeared somewhere between a bottle and a promise, and Harper became the child who stayed quiet, so the world wouldn't collapse on her. But even quiet girls carry storms inside them. From the moment she stepped into nursing school, Harper found purpose. She wasn't the smartest, but she was the one who held a newborn's hand through its first shaky breaths. The one who whispered comfort to mothers who felt their world was falling apart. She was the one who stayed past her shift, not for overtime, but because she couldn't bear the thought of a baby lying alone in an incubator. Nurses didn't make much, but Harper finally felt like she mattered. Then she met Cole Maddox. He walked into the hospital lobby one snowy evening, tall, sharp-featured, with a confidence that made the world look like it belonged to him. He was there visiting a colleague, but his eyes kept drifting back to Harper, her red hair tied in a messy bun, her scrubs rumpled from a 16-hour shift, her smile a little tired but unmistakably genuine. Cole told her she had a light in her, something rare. Harper believed him, because she wanted to. She didn't know that some people admire light only to find ways to extinguish it. Their first year of marriage felt like a dream. Simple dinners in their tiny Queens apartment, movie nights on the sofa, long talks about the future. Harper thought she had finally found a home. Then the promotions started. Cole entered the world of Manhattan finance, where image mattered more than truth, and ambition mattered more than loyalty. Slowly, the man who once made her feel seen began to treat her like an inconvenience. He criticized the long hours she worked, told her she wasn't polished enough to attend his firm's events, told her a nurse's salary didn't match his lifestyle, and then, one day, told her she wasn't enough. Still, Harper held on, especially when the unthinkable happened. After years of trying and failing, after nights spent crying quietly in the bathroom so Cole wouldn't hear, she found out she was pregnant. Not with one baby, not with 2. 3. Triplets. Her hands shook as she held the ultrasound printout, a miracle multiplied by 3. She imagined Cole lifting her off the floor in excitement, crying with her, promising they'd get through anything. Instead, he stared at the screen in stunned silence, then whispered the sentence that would haunt her until the day she gave birth. "Harper, that's impossible. I can't have kids." He showed her a medical report, one she didn't know had been altered. He accused her, he threatened divorce, He walked out for 3 days. But Harper refused to give up. These babies were hers, her second chance at family, her chance to rewrite the story she grew up with. She carried them through nausea, cramped apartments, double shifts and nights alone, telling each tiny heartbeat, "I'm here. I'm not leaving." She didn't know that the moment she brought them into the world, the man she loved would betray her in the cruelest way imaginable. And she had no idea someone else was about to step into her life and change everything. New York had a way of swallowing people whole, especially those who came with soft hearts and quiet hopes. Harper Sullivan had learned this long before the triplets, long before the betrayal, long before she found herself lying on a delivery table under blinding surgical lights while her world collapsed in slow motion. She lived in a cramped walk-up apartment in Astoria, Queens, the kind of space where winter wind slipped through old window frames and summer heat clung to the walls like a wet blanket. The kitchen barely fit a stove. The bedroom was hardly bigger than a closet. But to Harper, it had been a sanctuary, a place where she imagined bringing home her babies, rocking them to sleep in the small wooden crib she bought second-hand from a thrift store on Steinway Street. Every morning, she rode the N train into Manhattan for her shifts at St. Victoria Medical Center, a towering hospital nestled between sleek glass buildings on East 68th Street. It wasn't glamorous, but it was hers, her routine, her purpose. The polished white floors, the soft beeping of monitors, the echo of carts rolling down hallways. It all reminded her that she belonged somewhere, even if home no longer felt like home. Cole, meanwhile, lived in a different New York entirely. His world existed in mirrored boardrooms on the 42nd floor of a Park Avenue tower, where men in tailored suits closed deals worth millions before lunch and celebrated with dinners that cost more than Harper's monthly rent. His colleagues drove black Mercedes and wore watches that flashed under chandelier lights. He fit right into that world, slipping into ambition the way others slipped into a warm coat. But Harper had never belonged there. And the deeper Cole moved into that life, the more she faded from his. Their marriage had begun in a modest apartment and ended in a penthouse she rarely stepped foot into. Cole refused to bring her to company events, said she looked too tired, that nurses didn't really fit the vibe. He started coming home later, then not at all. And when he finally stopped pretending, their world split cleanly in two, his world of polished marble and her world of scuffed hospital floors. The clash between those worlds became undeniable the night Harper went into early labor. Snow hammered against the windows as she struggled to breathe through the contractions. She called Cole first, 3 times. No answer. He was at a corporate banquet at the plaza, where crystal chandeliers sparkled and Verena, his assistant, hovered at his side. Harper took a cab alone, gripping the seat as pain tore through her. The city blurred past. 5th Avenue, Central Park South, the rushing lights of ambulances crossing intersections. She arrived soaked in sweat, shaking, terrified. Inside St. Victoria's maternity ward, the atmosphere swung between chaos and urgency. Doctors rushed, machines whirred, nurses whispered updates and counted heartbeats. Harper's vision blurred as the contractions worsened, as her blood pressure plummeted, as the world narrowed into a tunnel of white noise. Cole arrived only when it was already too late to pretend he cared. He didn't touch her. He didn't ask if she was okay. He simply stood at the foot of the bed, handed her divorce papers, and told her the triplets weren't his. But the hospital had one more surprise for him, one he never could have predicted, because someone else had stepped into the role he abandoned. And the paperwork already carried that man's name. If Harper was the quiet force holding her world together, then Cole Maddox was the storm tearing it apart. He hadn't always been that way. At least not in the beginning. But power has a way of revealing the truth about people. And for Cole, truth was an ugly thing wrapped in an expensive suit. Cole grew up in a wealthy New England suburb where reputations mattered more than morals. His father, a harsh and calculating hedge fund manager, raised him to believe that emotions were weaknesses and weakness was a disease. Cole learned early how to charm, how to manipulate, how to win by stepping on others without leaving footprints. By the time he reached Manhattan, he had mastered the art of appearing respectable while hiding the rot beneath. Harper never saw that rot, not until it was too late. Cole didn't simply drift away from her when success came. He pulled away deliberately, brick by brick, replacing affection with criticism, then silence, then cruelty dressed as logic. He blamed her for his stress, blamed her for not matching his lifestyle, blamed her for wanting a family he wasn't sure he could give. But none of that compared to Verena Lowe. Verena entered Cole's life with a smile so polished it looked manufactured. As his junior analyst, she carried spreadsheets, catered lunches, and typed notes, but beneath her soft voice and shy posture was a razor-sharp hunger. Verena didn't want a job. She wanted a future built on someone else's ruin. And she chose Cole the way a wolf chooses the weakest deer in a herd, quietly, patiently, with unblinking focus. The first time Harper met her, Verena offered a handshake that was polite but cold, her eyes scanning Harper's thrift store sweater with a glimmer of superiority. "You must be Harper," she said. "Cole talks about you, sometimes." Harper didn't know it then, but Verena had already accessed Cole's encrypted health records. She already knew about the outdated medical note, stating Cole had extremely low fertility. She already understood how to twist that into a weapon. And she did. Night after night, she cornered Cole in the office, offering sympathy, offering validation, and eventually offering herself. She was the one who planted the seed. "Triplets, with your condition? Cole, you need to think about what that means." Cole listened because he wanted to, because doubt fed his ego more than truth ever could. From that moment, Verena crafted the narrative with surgical precision. She doctored a copy of his fertility file. She encouraged him to distance himself from Harper. She played the victim when he felt guilty, the confidant when he felt insecure, the lover when he felt powerful. By the time Harper entered her third trimester, Verena had become the shadow behind every cruel word Cole spoke. And now, inside the hospital waiting room, she stood beside him, her hand brushing his arm as if she had earned the right to touch him. When the nurse asked, "Are you the father?" Verena's lips curled into a delicate smirk, as if she already knew the answer Cole would give. But what she didn't know, what neither of them knew, was that the universe had been quietly preparing a reckoning. A reckoning that began with a signature. A reckoning that continued with a falsified report. A reckoning that would end their perfect little conspiracy in a way neither could escape. Because at that very moment, someone unexpected walked into the hallway, and the look on his face told them their lies had finally reached the wrong person. The hallway outside the delivery suite had gone eerily silent, the kind of silence that feels heavy, like the moment before a storm splits the sky. Nurses lingered near the walls, pretending to look busy but unable to tear their eyes away from Harper's door. Something catastrophic had taken root there, and everyone felt it. Cole Maddox stood rigid, jaw locked, divorce papers tucked under his arm like a trophy he had earned, not a life he had destroyed. Verena hovered beside him, fingers grazing his sleeve every few seconds, subtly claiming territory that wasn't hers. Every gesture she made was rehearsed. The concerned tilt of her head, the soft whisper, the way her eyes followed him with manufactured devotion. She was playing the role of the new woman in his life before the old one had even finished giving birth. Then came the nurse's question. "Sir, are you the father?" It was meant to be routine, a formality for newborn identification. But in that moment, the words sliced the air open. Cole stiffened, glancing at Verena, who gave a faint, confident smile, as if she expected him to deny everything on the spot. But that's not what made every head turn. It was the chart in the nurse's hands. The records list Dr. Rowan Hale as the emergency guardian and legal signatory for all 3 infants. We simply need confirmation for the long-term documentation. The color drained from Cole's face. "What did you just say?" His voice cracked in a way no one had ever heard before. Verena stepped forward quickly. "There must be a mistake. Dr. Hale? Why would he sign anything? Cole is the father. His name should be on every form." The nurse frowned. "Sir, you signed a pre-delivery refusal earlier. It grants the hospital the right to appoint the next available guardian in a medical emergency." Cole blinked, confused, replaying the rushed forms Verena had shoved at him hours earlier, forms he signed without reading, told they were liability waivers. But Verena wasn't confused. She was panicking. "Harper didn't ask him to sign," Verena insisted. "She barely knows Dr. Hale." A murmur swept the hallway. Everyone knew Rowan Hale. calm, brilliant, unshakably ethical. He was the doctor families prayed to get in an emergency. His presence meant the situation had been more serious than they'd realized. The door opened at the far end of the hallway. Rowan stepped out. Tall, steady, still in his scrubs, streaked with the remnants of a night spent keeping Harper alive. His dark hair was tousled, his jaw tense, and his eyes, normally warm, were sharp with a quiet fury. He walked past the nurses, past the families in the waiting area, and stopped in front of Cole. "You weren't here," Rowan said, his calm voice cutting sharper than a shout. "She was dying. The babies were crashing. Someone had to act." Cole scoffed, trying to recover his ego. "You had no right." Rowan stepped closer, his voice dropping. "And you had no interest. You left her. You left them." A ripple of shock traveled through the crowd. People whispered. Phones were raised. Someone recorded. For the first time, Cole saw his reputation slipping out of his hands. Rowan continued. "Harper survived because she fought. Your children survived because this hospital fought. And you," he didn't finish, "because then—" A monitor alarm erupted from inside the delivery room. Harper's heart rate was crashing. Cole spun toward the door. Rowan was already running. And the moment they crossed that threshold, everything they thought they understood was about to crumble. Harper felt consciousness slipping in and out like waves pulling her under. Voices blended into a distant hum, lights blurred into streaks, and every breath felt like dragging air through shattered glass. She could sense movement around her, hands adjusting tubes, the metallic click of instruments, shoes rushing across the floor. She knew she was in trouble long before anyone said the words aloud. Her chest felt heavy, too heavy. Her limbs tingled, then went numb. And somewhere behind the haze, she remembered Cole's voice. Cold, final, abandoning her at the very moment she needed him most. That's when she broke. Not loudly, not dramatically, but quietly, so quietly it would haunt her later. A single tear slipped down her cheek, unnoticed by the chaos around her. It wasn't from physical pain. It was the kind that comes when the last thread of hope snaps. The kind that steals the air from your lungs and replaces it with a hollow ache nothing can fill. "She's losing pressure," a nurse shouted. "We need to stabilize her, now." Harper wanted to speak, wanted to tell them she was fine, that she just needed a moment, that she wasn't ready to leave her babies alone in this world. But her lips wouldn't part, her voice wouldn't rise. Instead, her mind drifted into memories she didn't choose. Her mother's warm hands tucking her into bed. Her younger self promising she'd be a different kind of parent. Her first positive pregnancy test, the miracle she thought she'd never have. Cole smiling at her once upon a time, before ambition and lies carved him into someone unrecognizable. Then a darker memory surfaced. The sound of Cole whispering, "They're not mine," as she lay helpless on the delivery table. That sentence wrapped itself around her heart like a tightening fist. Her breathing hitched, monitors screamed. "She's crashing!" A mask pressed over her mouth, warm hands supported her head. Someone called for epinephrine. Someone else shouted for Rowan. Through blurry vision, she saw him, Rowan Hale, appearing at her side like a storm contained in human form. His eyes swept over her, assessing, calculating, fighting panic with practiced control. "Harper, stay with me," he said, leaning close. His voice was steady, grounding. "You're okay? You're safe? I've got you." No one had said those words to her in a long time. Another tear slid free. "Rowan, BP is dropping fast." "Get me a second line," he barked. "We're not losing her. Not today." His hand found hers. He squeezed, firm and certain, as if sheer willpower could anchor her to the world. "Think of your babies," Rowan said softly. "They need you. You hear me? They need their mom." Her heartbeat stuttered, flatlined for just a fraction of a second, then surged again, weak but present. Rowan exhaled, relief flashing in his eyes. "That's it. Fight. Don't give up on me now." Harper's vision dimmed, colors draining into gray, sounds stretched and warped. Her mind felt like a room with the lights turning off one by one. But just before the darkness swallowed her, she heard a voice she never expected. Cold, furious, shaking with disbelief, shouting from outside the room. "What do you mean her babies are registered under another man's name?" Verina's voice answered, trembling in panic. "They're saying Rowan Hale signed everything." Harper's heart lurched, and then the world went dark before she could hear the rest. Harper drifted in and out of consciousness for hours, suspended in a fog where voices blurred and light pulsed like distant stars. She didn't know how much time had passed when she finally opened her eyes, the soft beeping of machines welcoming her back. Her breathing was steadier now, the room dim, the air cool against her skin. But she wasn't alone. Rowan Hale was seated beside her bed, elbows on his knees, exhaustion etched into his posture. His scrubs were wrinkled, his hair disheveled from running his hands through it 100 times. Yet his eyes, when they finally lifted to meet hers, held a warmth she didn't understand. "You scared the hell out of us," he said softly. Harper tried to speak, but her throat burned. Rowan poured water, lifting the cup to her lips with a gentleness she hadn't felt in years. When she could finally form words, they came out cracked. "My babies, are they okay?" "They're fighters," Rowan said. "Stronger than anyone expected. They're stable for now." Relief washed over her, so intense it pulled another tear free. But the moment was short-lived. Pain flickered across Rowan's features, something he tried and failed to hide. "Harper, there's something we need to talk about." Her heart thudded unevenly. "What happened? What did I hear before I passed out?" Rowan exhaled. "The hospital had to list a legal guardian during the emergency. Cole wasn't here. You weren't conscious. Protocol required someone else to sign. And you," Harper whispered. "I was the physician on duty, so yes, I signed." Then he added quietly, "The babies carry the last name Hale until the paperwork changes." Harper's breath caught. The thought of her children linked to a man she barely knew, legally, officially, felt surreal. "But that's not the real issue," Rowan continued, his voice lowered. "Cole's fertility records, they were altered." Harper blinked. "Altered? What do you mean?" Rowan stood, retrieving a file from the counter. His movements were slow, careful. His medical chart was edited, lab values changed, diagnoses fabricated. He met her eyes. "Cole isn't infertile. He never was." The world tilted. "But he showed me. He showed me papers," Harper stammered. "He said he couldn't." "He believed they were real," Rowan said. "But someone else had access to his health system profile. Someone who knew exactly what to change." The implication rang loudly in the small room. "Verena." Harper felt cold creep up her spine. Rowan continued. "And there's more. When you passed out earlier, the NICU pulled additional genetic markers to verify parentage for emergency blood matching." Harper's pulse quickened. "What did they find?" Rowan hesitated, long enough that her stomach dropped. "The triplets markers are a 99% match with Cole's. They're biologically his." Her breath hitched. The months of doubt, the accusations, the divorce papers shoved into her shaking hands, all of it based on a lie. A lie someone wanted Cole to believe. A lie that ruined her. "Why?" Harper whispered, voice trembling. "Why would someone do that?" Rowan's jaw tightened. "You need to know something else about Verena Lowe. She wasn't just Cole's analyst. She attended your nursing program years ago." Harper's eyes widened. A memory flashed. Verena's cold handshake, the faint smirk, the way she'd looked at Harper like she knew her weaknesses. "She sabotaged you once," Rowan said. "Scholarship records, recommendation letters. She has a history of targeting you." Harper felt her pulse hammering in her ears. This wasn't fate. This wasn't an accident. It was calculated, deliberate, personal. Before she could respond, a knock sounded at the door. A nurse peeked in, breathless. "Dr. Hale, there's a problem in the NICU. Someone is trying to access the triplets ward." Rowan's expression hardened. "Who?" he demanded. The nurse swallowed. "Cole and Verena." Harper's blood ran cold. And in that instant, she realized the nightmare wasn't over. It had only just begun. The morning after the NICU incident felt like a different lifetime. Harper sat upright in her hospital bed, no longer trembling, no longer drifting in and out of fear. Something inside her had shifted. Maybe it was the shock of the truth. Maybe it was nearly losing her life. Or maybe it was finally realizing that she had spent years shrinking herself for a man incapable of loving anything he couldn't control. Whatever the reason, the woman who opened her eyes today was not the same one who had begged Cole to stay. A soft knock sounded at the door. Nurse Priya slipped in with a warm smile and a small rolling mirror. "You asked for this," she said gently. "Are you sure?" "Yes," Harper whispered. "I need to see myself." Priya positioned the mirror. For a long moment, Harper didn't look. She braced herself for the exhaustion, the paleness, the dark circles carved under her eyes. But when she finally lifted her gaze, she froze. She didn't look weak, she looked alive. Her cheeks held color again. Her hair, though messy, framed her face with surprising softness. Her eyes, though tired, held a new clarity, a new resolve. For the first time in years, she saw her mother's strength looking back at her. "Let me help you freshen up," Priya offered. Together, they braided Harper's hair, smoothed her gown, washed the dried tears from her face. It wasn't glamorous, but it felt like rebuilding. Piece by piece, breath by breath. When Rowan entered an hour later, he paused in the doorway. "You look." His voice trailed off, something unspoken flickering across his face. "Better. Strong." Harper managed a small smile. "I feel awake." Rowan pulled up a chair, his expression shifting into something more serious. "We tightened security at the NICU. Cole and Verena won't get near the babies again without authorization." A spark of fear flickered, then faded. "Good," she said. "I'm done letting them decide my life." Rowan studied her for a moment. "You sound different." "I am different." She straightened, glancing toward the window where early sunlight spilled across the floor. "For years, I thought my only purpose was to make my marriage work, to be enough for him, to prove my worth. But I don't belong in his shadow. I don't belong in anyone's shadow." Rowan softened. "You never did." Harper continued, voice steadying. "When I'm discharged, I want legal counsel, DNA confirmation, documentation of the falsified medical records, everything. I'm not bending anymore. If Cole wants a war, he'll get one, but this time, I'm not walking into it blind." Rowan nodded slowly, admiration threading through his expression. "I'll help you however I can." But Harper shook her head. "No, this part I need to do myself." Still, Rowan didn't fully step back. He handed her a sealed envelope. "What's this?" "You'll need it," he said simply. Inside was a card, an introduction to one of the most respected family law firms in Manhattan, the kind of firm only the wealthy ever hired. The name alone carried weight like steel. Harper swallowed hard. "Rowan, I can't afford." "You can," he interrupted, "because I already covered the retainer." Harper stared at him, stunned. "Why would you do that for me?" Rowan hesitated. His jaw flexed, his eyes flickered with something deep, something he wasn't ready to speak aloud. "Because someone should have protected you a long time ago, and because you deserve a life where you're not constantly fighting to survive." Her breath caught. Before she could respond, a voice drifted into the hallway. Sharp. Cold. Familiar. Cole. He was back, and he wasn't alone, because the next voice Harper heard was Verena's. The boardroom on the 42nd floor of Maddox Financial had never been this quiet. Floor-to-ceiling windows framed Manhattan's skyline, casting cold blue light across polished glass tables. It should have been a morning like any other. Analysts shuffling papers, partners reviewing projections, but instead, every seat was filled, every eye was sharp, and tension crackled like static electricity. Because today, Harper Sullivan had come to end the man who tried to erase her. She didn't walk in alone. Rowan Hale entered beside her, flanked by two attorneys wearing expressions that said they'd already won. Harper wasn't dressed in hospital gowns or exhaustion this time. She wore a dark green wrap dress that set her hair aflame under the fluorescent lights, her posture straight, her chin lifted. She wasn't the fragile woman Cole had tried to discard. She was the mother of 3 children he had abandoned. And the woman he never thought would rise again. Cole stood at the far end of the table, his confidence visibly cracking. Verena was planted at his side, wrapped in a fitted blazer, pretending she belonged in the room. But her eyes darted every few seconds, toward the lawyers, toward Rowan, toward Harper, like a trapped animal. "Let's get this over with," Cole said, trying to sound in control. "You can't just barge into my company." Rowan raised an eyebrow. "Actually, we were invited." He tossed a file onto the table. "By your board." Gasps rippled across the room. The oldest board member, a stern woman with steel-gray hair, leaned forward. "Mr. Maddox, your wife, your legal wife, has presented serious allegations regarding falsified medical records, intentional emotional harm, and attempted access to the NICU without authorization." Cole's face reddened. "This is insane. She's lying. She's..." "Enough." Harper's voice was steady, clear, and devastatingly calm. She slid a stack of documents across the table. "These are the corrected copies of your fertility results. And these," she placed a second folder atop the first, "are the digital footprints showing who altered them." Verena blanched. The attorneys displayed enlarged screenshots, login timestamps, IP addresses, security alerts, all pointing to one person, Verena Lowe. No, Verena whispered. That's impossible. I couldn't. Rowan stepped closer, his gaze piercing. You accessed a restricted medical portal using credentials stolen from a retired administrator. You forged results. You manipulated Cole into destroying his marriage, and then you tried to enter the NICU to interfere again. The board erupted. Cole staggered back as if struck. You did this? Verena. She snapped. You were supposed to leave her. You chose her over me every time, even when you didn't realize it. I had to make you see the truth. That wasn't truth, Harper said quietly. That was obsession. Verena lunged forward suddenly, pointing at Harper with shaking hands. You don't deserve him. You never did. He's mine. Security burst into the room, summoned earlier by Rowan. Verena shrieked as they seized her arms. Cole didn't move to stop them. As she was dragged out, she screamed, This isn't over. You'll regret this. All of you. Silence fell. Cole looked around the room, panicked. You can't take her word over mine. She's trying to ruin me. But Harper was already opening the final folder, the one that would destroy what remained of his reputation. Inside were the DNA results confirming the truth Cole had screamed wasn't possible. You are the father, Cole, Harper said softly, and you abandoned your own children. The board froze. Cole swayed. His empire trembled under his feet. Then Rowan placed a hand on Harper's shoulder. Harper, he murmured, you did what you came to do. But Harper wasn't done. She stepped forward, eyes locked on Cole, voice trembling with strength. This is only the beginning. And at that exact moment, the board chair announced a vote, one that would decide Cole's fate forever. The vote didn't take long, but its impact echoed like thunder. Cole Maddox stood in the center of the boardroom as the people who had once admired him, once called him a visionary, raised their hands, one by one in favor of his removal as CEO. No hesitation, no sympathy, just cold silence and the sound of a kingdom collapsing. Cole's throat bobbed as he tried to swallow his shock. You can't do this. I built this company. The chairwoman closed the folder in front of her. And you nearly destroyed it. Reckless behavior. Ethical breaches. Negligence impacting not only your employees but your own family. We cannot entrust this firm to someone who prioritizes ego over integrity. Harper watched without speaking. She didn't gloat. She didn't smile. She stood quiet and still, the way someone stands at the edge of a battlefield after the smoke clears. Not triumphant, but resolute. Cole turned to her, eyes wild. You're doing this. You're turning everyone against me. No, Harper said softly. You did that all on your own. His gaze darted around the room, desperately searching for someone, anyone, to take his side. But Verena was gone. His colleagues stared back with carefully neutral expressions. He had no allies left. Security approached. Cole stumbled back. I'm not leaving. This is my company, my name, my legacy. But the guards each took an arm, guiding him toward the door. He didn't fight. Not truly. His legs weakened beneath him, his shoulders sagging. The weight of consequences, real consequences, became too heavy for a man who had spent his life avoiding them. Just before he disappeared through the doorway, he looked back at Harper. There was fear in his eyes, a fear she had once felt, but would never feel again. When he was gone, the room finally exhaled. The board turned their attention to Harper, offering quiet nods, subtle acknowledgments. Not pity, respect. She had endured humiliation, betrayal, abandonment, and still found the strength to stand before them. Rowan stepped closer, voice low enough for her alone. It's over, Harper. But she shook her head. No, not yet. He studied her. What's left? Harper lifted her chin. My children deserve legal protection, full custody, and Cole will try something reckless once he realizes what he's lost. Rowan nodded slowly. Then we prepare. As they exited the boardroom, reporters swarmed the lobby downstairs. Cameras flashed like lightning, microphones thrust forward. The headline was already spreading through Manhattan. Disgraced CEO removed after paternity scandal and medical fraud. Harper raised a hand instinctively to shield her face, but Rowan gently shifted in front of her, blocking the barrage of cameras with his body. It's okay, he murmured. I've got you. His presence, steady, calm, solid, felt like a lifeline. For the first time in a long while, Harper realized she wasn't surviving this alone. Outside the building, the winter wind whipped through the streets. but she felt strangely warm inside, as if something heavy had finally been lifted. She had walked into the fire and come out stronger. Still, a question nagged at her. "Do you think Cole will disappear?" she asked. Rowan exhaled. "Men like Cole don't disappear. They retaliate." Harper swallowed hard, the city lights blurred behind falling snow. "Then I need to be ready." Rowan stepped closer, searching her face. "You won today, and you'll win what comes next. I'll make sure of it." But just as Harper opened her mouth to respond, Rowan's phone buzzed sharply. He glanced at the screen, and his expression darkened. "What is it?" she asked, pulse quickening. Rowan lifted his eyes, voice tightening. "It's the hospital." Harper froze. They said someone tried to access the NICU again. And this time, it wasn't Cole or Verena. The hospital hallways felt colder than usual, as if the walls themselves sensed something was wrong. Harper's heart thudded in her chest as she hurried alongside Rowan, their footsteps echoing sharply against polished floors. Her palms were sweating. Her throat felt tight. She had already survived betrayal, humiliation, and a near-death experience. But nothing terrified her the way those 3 tiny incubators did. "What happened?" she gasped, trying to keep up with Rowan's long strides. "The NICU reported an unauthorized attempt to enter the restricted wing," Rowan said. Voice clipped. When staff approached, the person ran. Harper's stomach dropped. "Ran? So they got inside?" "No," Rowan said, "but they were close enough to scare everyone." They rounded the corner toward the NICU entrance. Security guards stood by the double doors, tension radiating from their stiff posture. One guard stepped forward as Rowan approached. "Dr. Hale, we reviewed footage," the guard said. "The suspect was wearing a visitor badge, but it wasn't issued today." "How did they get it?" Harper whispered. The guard hesitated. "We're tracing that now, but there's something else." He turned to Harper. "Ma'am, the badge was issued under your name." Harper felt her knees nearly buckle. What? I didn't request any badges. I haven't left the maternity wing." Rowan's jaw clenched. Someone is spoofing her identity. Panic crawled up Harper's spine like cold fingers. Who would do this? Cole was furious, yes, but reckless entry into a NICU? Even he wouldn't risk harming his own children. And Verena was in police custody. So who? Rowan gently touched her elbow. "Come on, let's check on the babies." They entered the NICU, greeted by the steady, rhythmic beeping of heart monitors. The warm, low-lit room always felt like sacred ground, the place where fragile beginnings fought their way into the world. Harper hurried to the incubators where her triplets lay, small and perfect, connected to monitors but breathing steadily. Noah, Grace, Oliver, her entire reason for breathing. She touched the glass gently, her voice barely a whisper. "Mommy's here." "They're okay," Rowan murmured. Nothing was tampered with. Harper exhaled a shaky breath. Relief washed over her, but it was thin, fragile, easily pierced. "Someone's targeting them," she said, voice trembling. "Why? What do they want?" Rowan didn't answer immediately. Instead, he motioned for the NICU nurse to give them space. Once the room quieted, he turned to Harper with a seriousness he'd never shown before. "There's a possibility," he said slowly, "that this has nothing to do with Cole." Harper frowned. "Who else would want to hurt my children?" Rowan slid his hands into his pockets, a gesture that told her he was choosing every word carefully. The badge wasn't the only strange thing. Security reported the intruder didn't try to reach the triplets at first. They went to the supply cabinet. "The cabinet?" Harper repeated. "Why?" "Because that's where blood type charts and transfusion kits are kept." Rowan met her gaze. Someone wasn't trying to harm them. Someone was looking for DNA confirmation. Harper felt the blood drain from her face. Why would anyone want that? Rowan's silence was louder than any answer. Then a nurse rushed into the NICU, breathless. "Dr. Hale, you need to see this." She held out a tablet. Security had enhanced the footage. The intruder's face was partially obscured by a hood, but not enough. Harper froze. She knew that face. A face she hadn't seen in almost 15 years. Her estranged father. The man who abandoned her. And now he was trying to reach her children. For a long moment, Harper couldn't breathe. The image on the tablet, grainy, slightly distorted, but unmistakably him, hollowed out her chest. That face, aged but familiar, yanked her backward through years she had buried on purpose. Her father, Harper Sullivan. The man who vanished without a goodbye. The man who left her and her mother drowning in overdue bills and broken promises. The man she hadn't spoken to since she was 13. "What is he doing here?" Harper whispered. "Why now?" Rowan gently took the tablet from her trembling hands. "We don't know yet. But security has flagged his visitor ID. It was issued using stolen credentials." Her stomach churned. All the nights she spent crying alone after he abandoned them came flooding back. The months of eviction notices. Her mother working triples to keep them afloat. The crushing guilt she carried when her mother became sick. Harper had learned early that the people meant to protect you were sometimes the first to walk away. She hadn't expected him to return. She definitely hadn't expected him to return like this. Rowan stepped closer. "Harper, when was the last time you saw him?" 15 years ago, she whispered. "He walked out, didn't call, didn't send money, didn't even show up when Mom got sick. I thought he was dead." Her voice cracked on the last word. Rowan's expression softened. "Maybe he's desperate. Maybe something happened." Harper shook her head. "He was never desperate enough to come home, not for me, not for her." She stared at the newborns in their incubators, the tiny lives she would die to protect, and the thought of her father, the man who couldn't even protect his own child, trying to access them, made her skin crawl. The NICU nurse lingered nearby, hesitant. "There's more. We pulled hospital records from admissions earlier this morning. Someone under your father's name requested a consultation with genetic specialists." Harper's eyes widened. "Genetics? Why?" Rowan exchanged a look with the nurse, a heavy one. "Harper, there's a chance your father may be sick." Harper's breath faltered. "Sick? Certain genetic disorders require close biological relatives for treatment," Rowan explained carefully. "Sometimes grandchildren." The floor seemed to tilt beneath her. "No," she whispered. "He doesn't get to walk back into my life and demand anything. He doesn't get to use my kids as solutions." Rowan placed a steady hand on her shoulder. "You don't have to make any decisions right now, but you need to know the truth before he tries to reach you again." Harper swallowed hard. Her pulse thundered. She felt the old wounds opening, wounds she thought she'd sealed long ago. "But why steal a badge?" she murmured. "Why sneak around instead of talking to me?" The nurse lowered her voice. "Because the hospital declined his request. He wasn't authorized to learn anything about you or the babies. He tried to force access." Harper felt a disturbing mix of anger and dread twist inside her. Her father had always been unpredictable, charming when he wanted something, cruel when he didn't get it. But this was different. This was deliberate, calculated. Rowan hesitated before speaking again. "There's one more thing you should hear. The security team found something dropped near the NICU entrance." He reached into his coat pocket and handed her a folded piece of paper. Harper unfolded it slowly, her breath quickening as she recognized the handwriting, jagged, messy, painfully familiar. It read, "Harper, I need your children. Don't make me do this the hard way." Her hands shook, the room spun. Rowan grabbed the paper before it slipped from her fingers. Her father wasn't here for reconciliation. He was here for possession. Before Rowan could speak, another alarm blared across the floor. A NICU alert that made Harper's blood turn to ice. A nurse burst into the hall. "Dr. Hale, one of the baby's monitors just spiked. We need you now." Harper's heart stopped, and when she ran into the NICU, she realized the nightmare wasn't over. It was escalating. The NICU was pulsing with urgency the moment Harper rushed inside. Alarms flashed overhead, casting red light across the room like a warning from the universe itself. Nurses moved quickly but with measured precision, surrounding the smallest of Harper's babies. Oliver, her most fragile child. His monitor had spiked, oxygen levels dipping just enough to trigger panic. Harper pressed a hand to her chest, trying to breathe. "What's happening?" A nurse checked the ventilator connections. "His vitals are stabilizing, but someone tampered with the incubator settings. The temperature was shifted." Harper froze. "Shifted? On purpose?" "It wasn't a system glitch," the nurse said grimly. "Someone did this manually." Her vision blurred as horror washed over her. First her father trying to sneak in. Now this. Someone willing to risk a newborn's life. Then Rowan stormed into the NICU with the intensity of a man ready for war. He went straight to Oliver's side, assessing the charts, adjusting the settings, and barking orders with practiced calm. "Get me a full diagnostic read. I want every change time-stamped," he said. and lock every access point. No one gets within 10 feet of these babies without triple verification. His presence steadied the room, and for a moment, Harper felt the world stop shaking. But when Rowan finally turned toward her, she saw something new in his eyes. Something sharp and controlled only by force. "Harper," he said quietly, "this wasn't your father." She swallowed. "How do you know?" Rowan lifted a small object sealed in a plastic evidence bag. A security badge. A badge that didn't belong to her father. A badge that didn't belong to Cole either. "This was found under the incubator," Rowan said. "It's a duplicate access card used by hospital staff." Harper's stomach tightened. "Whose is it?" Rowan hesitated just long enough to make her knees weaken. "It belongs to a night shift technician, one who clocked out early tonight." Harper frowned. "But why would he?" "Because someone paid him," Rowan said flatly. "And we need to know who." Before she could answer, the NICU doors burst open, and a security supervisor hurried in. "Dr. Hale, we've detained the technician," he said. "He claims he didn't intend to harm anyone. Just do a job." Harper's pulse spiked. "What job?" The supervisor looked from Harper to Rowan, unsure how much to reveal. Rowan nodded for him to continue. "He said a woman contacted him, offered cash to trigger a mild scare so the mother would be distracted long enough for someone else to speak to the infants. Said it was a family matter." Harper felt ice slide down her spine. "A woman," Rowan stiffened. "Describe her." He said she was in her 30s, tall, dark red hair, expensive coat. Harper shook her head. "No, that can't be. Verena is already," but Rowan was already ahead of her, expression darkening. "It's not Verena." A chill swept over Harper. She only knew one other woman with hair like that. Her breath faltered. "My father's second wife, Elena." Rowan's eyes widened, the connection snapping into place. "You mentioned she never liked you." "That's an understatement," Harper whispered. "She blamed me for my father leaving. She said I ruined his life, and now she thinks my babies can save his." Before Rowan could respond, the NICU intercom buzzed sharply. "Dr. Hale, please report to the main entrance, immediately." Rowan exchanged a tense look with Harper. "Stay here. Don't move. Don't talk to anyone." Harper nodded, clutching the incubator rail like an anchor. Rowan strode out of the NICU just as a guard rushed in, breathless. "Ma'am," he said urgently, "you need to come with me. Someone is demanding to see you." Harper's heart slammed against her ribs. "Who?" the guard swallowed. "A woman, with red hair. And she refuses to leave until she gets the babies." Harper followed the security guard down the long corridor, each step heavier than the last. Her palms were damp, her breath uneven. She had faced Cole, she had faced Verena, she had even faced the ghost of her father's betrayal. But the woman waiting for her now, Harper Sullivan, was a different kind of danger. A quiet, venomous danger, the kind that smiled while twisting knives into backs. When they reached the main entrance, Harper froze. Elena stood in the middle of the lobby like she owned the hospital. Her tall frame was wrapped in a burgundy cashmere coat, her red hair falling in elegant waves, her expression a cold mask of superiority. People moved out of her way without realizing why. Power radiated from her, but it wasn't real power. It was entitlement, sharpened by bitterness. The moment Elena spotted Harper, her lips curved into a thin, poisonous smile. "Well," she said, her voice smooth as glass. "The prodigal daughter returns." Harper swallowed hard. "What are you doing here, Elena?" Elena took a step closer, her heels clicking against the marble floor. "I came for what should have been ours a long time ago." Harper stiffened. "My children aren't yours. They aren't Dad's. They're mine." Elena's smile didn't falter. "Patrick is dying." The words hit Harper like a punch to the chest. Elena continued, "He needs a genetic match for a stem cell treatment, something only close blood relatives can provide." "And you want to use my babies," Harper said, her voice raw. "You want to take from them the way he took from me." Elena's eyes hardened. "Your father gave you life. You owe him." "Owe him?" Harper's voice shook with fury. "He abandoned us. He left Mom to struggle alone. He wasn't there when she died. He wasn't there when I was forced to give up school. He didn't even say goodbye." "For God's sake, Harper," Elena snapped. "Let go of the past. This is bigger than your feelings." "No," Harper said softly, her anger steady now. "It's exactly about my feelings, and my boundaries, and my children, and you will never touch them." Elena's mask cracked for the first time. "You think you can stop me?" she hissed. "You think that doctor of yours can protect you?" I have lawyers too. I have money. And you, she looked Harper up and down, you have always been weak. Harper didn't flinch. Weak people don't survive what I survived. For the first time, Elena's composure wavered. Before she could respond, Rowan appeared behind Harper, his presence like a wall made of steel and fire. He stepped beside her without a word, eyes locked on Elena with a fury he rarely showed. You will leave this hospital, Rowan said evenly. You will not approach Harper again, and you will never, ever, come near her children. Elena laughed coldly. And who are you to make that decision? Rowan pulled a document from his coat and handed it to the nearest security guard. This is a temporary protective order, effective immediately. Elena's smirk finally collapsed. You can't do this, she spat. I already have, Rowan replied. But Elena wasn't defeated. Not yet. Her eyes glittered with something darker, something dangerous. You think this ends here? She whispered. Harper will come to eventually. She'll have no choice. And when she does, Rowan stepped forward, voice like ice. Get out. Security moved in. Elena glared at them, then at Harper, a glare filled with promises of future harm, before turning sharply and storming out of the hospital. Harper let out a shaken breath. Rowan placed a steady hand on her back. It's over, he murmured, but Harper's gaze lingered on the revolving doors where Elena disappeared. Because deep down, she knew something Rowan didn't. Elena never walked away without a plan, and she never attacked only once. The next morning, Harper sat in a polished wood conference room at Fairchild & Lawson, the Manhattan law firm Rowan had connected her to. Outside the windows, the city pulsed with winter sunlight, glittering off skyscrapers like shards of glass. Inside, tension simmered thick enough to taste. Her attorney, Mara Lawson, slid a stack of documents across the table. Harper, what we're building here isn't just a custody case, it's a full-scale protection strategy for you and your children. Harper nodded, her fingers brushing the edge of the paper. And Elena? And my father? We're filing restraining orders today, Mara said, along with a criminal complaint for attempted medical interference. She tapped the file. This technician's confession is enough for law enforcement to trace the money back to Elena and possibly to your father as well. The thought made Harper's chest tighten. She had spent years trying to stop her past from bleeding into her present, but now that past was crashing through the doors, demanding things she could never give. Mara continued, There's also the matter of Cole. His attorney sent a letter this morning, challenging the DNA findings and demanding access to the triplets. Harper stiffened. He abandoned us. He said they weren't his, in front of witnesses. Mara gave a grim smile. And I'm going to tear him apart with that. His signature on the parental refusal form is legally catastrophic. Add in Verina's falsifications, his NICU intrusion attempt, and now his removal from Maddox Financial. This man is in no position to gain anything in court. Harper felt a mixture of relief and sorrow. She had wanted Cole to love their children, not weaponize them. But reality didn't bend to hope. Mara flipped to another page. Now about your father. There's something you need to see. She handed Harper a printed report, a hospital file compiled overnight by Rowan's contacts. Harper frowned. What is this? It's his medical situation, Mara explained gently, and something else. Harper scanned the pages. Each sentence hit harder than the last. Genetic marrow failure, progressive, prognosis poor. Then her eyes reached the line that froze her heart. Potential candidate for experimental treatment pending family match verification. Her hand trembled. So it's true, he's dying. Yes, Mara said softly, and he believes access to your children is his only chance. Harper closed her eyes, swallowing the ache rising in her throat. She wasn't heartless, she wasn't vengeful, but saving the man who had never saved her, sacrificing the children he never wanted? No, not anymore. Mara leaned forward. Harper, we also uncovered something else, something about Elena. Harper looked up, startled. What about her? She's not just your father's wife, Mara said. She's his financial guardian, which means if he dies before receiving treatment, she inherits everything. Harper blinked. Everything? Every asset, every investment, every property. And if he lives? Mara's lips tightened. She gets nothing. It hit Harper like a lightning strike. Elena wasn't fighting to save her husband, she was fighting to save her inheritance. Rowan suddenly appeared in the doorway, slightly out of breath. Harper, he said urgently, There's new information. Security reviewed another camera angle. Harper's pulse spiked. About Elena? Rowan shook his head. No, about your father, Mara frowned. What is it? Rowan stepped inside, closing the door behind him. Patrick didn't come to the hospital alone, he said. He had help. Harper's breath snagged. Whose help? Rowan hesitated, then answered. Cole's. Harper's world lurched, and in that instant she realized two men who once abandoned her had now joined forces against her. Harper felt the air leave her lungs. Cole, the man who once vowed to build a future with her, now aligned with the father who abandoned her? It felt impossible, yet something in her gut told her it made a twisted kind of sense. Two men who thrived on control, both threatened by her independence, both panicked by the consequences of their own actions. Rowan stepped forward, placing the security photos on the table. This was taken 2 hours before Patrick attempted to breach the NICU. That's him, and that's Cole handing him an envelope. Harper stared at the grainy image. Cole's expression was furious, tight-jawed, his shoulders stiff. Patrick looked desperate, unwell, but determined. The envelope between them felt like a physical symbol of betrayal. What's in the envelope? She whispered. Cash, Rowan replied. And instructions. Your father was supposed to obtain DNA evidence from one of the infants to strengthen Cole's new custody claim. Harper's breath hitched. He helped Patrick in exchange for access to my babies? Mara, her attorney, nodded grimly. It aligns with Cole's latest legal filing. He's now claiming you coerced Rowan into falsifying the guardian paperwork. He's building a narrative that you're unstable, vindictive, and acting against the children's best interest. Harper almost laughed, not from humor, but disbelief. After everything he did to us, he wants to paint himself as the victim? Mara leaned back. Desperate men rewrite stories to survive them. But Rowan wasn't amused. His eyes burned with a protectiveness that went far deeper than duty. He's not getting near those kids, Rowan said. Not now, not ever. But we need to strike first, legally and publicly. Harper straightened. What do you need from me? Your truth, Mara replied. Every detail, every threat, every moment he abandoned you. The court needs to see the full pattern. For the first time, Harper didn't feel shame. She felt something else, strength. She told them everything, her voice steady, the memories no longer chains but evidence. Rowan remained at her side throughout, silent but unwavering, his presence grounding her like a steady pulse. When she finished, Mara closed her notebook. Good. We'll file a restraining order against Cole within the hour, and we're requesting emergency custody protections. With the evidence we have, the judge will rule in your favor. Harper exhaled shakily. Relief mingled with fear, the kind that comes when a new storm forms on the horizon. Rowan turned to her. There's more. Her stomach tightened. I don't think I can take any more. You can, he said softly. You already have. He set another document in front of her, this time a hospital internal memo. Harper frowned. What am I looking at? A complaint, Rowan said. Filed by Cole, against me. Harper's pulse skidded. He's accusing me of improper conduct with a patient. With you. Harper shot up from her chair. What? That's a lie. Rowan nodded. Of course it is, but if it sticks, I lose my medical license. And he knows that. He's trying to remove me from your side so you'll stand alone again. Harper's fists clenched. I won't let him do that. I won't lose the one person who's actually protecting us. Rowan's eyes flickered. A rare moment of vulnerability. We'll fight it. Together. Mara looked between them, then placed a new file on the table. This is our counterstrike, and once we file it, Cole will have no path left. Harper nodded, bracing herself, but before Mara could continue, her phone buzzed sharply. She glanced at the screen, and her expression drained of color. What is it? Harper whispered. Mara looked up, voice tight with dread. The judge wants an immediate emergency hearing. Rowan stiffened. When? Now. Now, Mara said. As in 30 minutes. Harper's heart pounded, because the fate of her children was about to be decided, and Cole would be waiting for her in that courtroom. The courthouse smelled faintly of old paper and winter air as Harper stepped inside, every nerve in her body thrumming. Rowan walked at her right, Mara at her left, the three of them moving with a quiet urgency that turned heads. Harper's palms were damp, her stomach tight, but her spine stayed straight. She wasn't here as a victim today. She was here as a mother. Inside the courtroom, Cole was already waiting, seated confidently beside his attorney, smugness returning to his face like a stain resurfacing under bright light. He had dressed the part too, a crisp navy suit, silver tie, hair slicked back. He looked like a man who believed he could charm a judge the same way he charmed investors. But his eyes flickered when Harper entered. Not with guilt, with fear. He saw the change in her, the strength, the steadiness, the refusal to shrink. Harper didn't look at him. She took her seat beside Mara, Rowan standing behind her like a silent fortress. The judge entered, stern, silver-haired, commanding silence with a single glance. "This emergency hearing has been called," she began, "to address 3 matters: temporary custody of the minor children, alleged misconduct by Dr. Rowan Hale, and concerns for the safety of the infants in the neonatal intensive care unit." Harper's heart pounded. 3 battles in one arena. Cole's attorney rose first. "Your Honor, my client was wrongfully excluded from his children's lives. Miss Sullivan and Dr. Hale conspired to assign guardianship to him. Their actions were premeditated and designed to sever paternal rights." Rowan's jaw tightened. The attorney continued, "Furthermore, we have reason to believe Dr. Hale engaged in inappropriate emotional entanglement with a vulnerable patient." Mara stood so sharply her chair scraped the floor. "Objection. We have documented evidence proving Mr. Maddox falsified narratives to hide his own negligence and intentional abandonment." She handed a binder thick enough to make the judge raise an eyebrow. Inside were copies of Cole's signed parental refusal, testimony from multiple hospital staff, security footage showing him yelling in the NICU hallway, Verina's confession tying him to falsified medical records. The judge flipped through the binder, her expression flattening. "Mr. Maddox, is this your signature on the refusal form?" Cole swallowed. I was misled." "Answer the question." "Yes," he muttered. "And you knowingly left the hospital during a high-risk labor?" "I thought the children weren't mine." "That is not an acceptable excuse for abandonment," the judge snapped. Harper felt Rowan place a steady hand on the back of her chair. She didn't look up, but she felt the warmth of it, and it steadied the tremor in her breath. Then Mara stepped forward again. "Your Honor, we also have evidence that Mr. Maddox has recently colluded with Patrick Sullivan, a man with a restraining order request pending, to illegally obtain DNA samples from a NICU ward. Their actions nearly resulted in medical harm to an infant." The courtroom erupted in whispers. Cole's face turned red. "That's a lie." Rowan lifted the security stills. "This photograph was taken 3 hours before the attempted breach." Cole's attorney lunged to object, but the judge held up her hand sharply. "Sit down. Now." Cole sank into his chair, fury radiating off him. The judge leaned forward. "Based on this evidence, temporary full custody will remain with Miss Sullivan. Mr. Maddox will have no visitation rights until a full investigation is completed." Harper's breath left her in a rush, relief and justice and disbelief all tangled together. But the judge wasn't finished. "As for the allegations against Dr. Hale," she turned to Rowan, "the court finds no grounds for misconduct at this time. In fact, his actions likely saved Miss Sullivan's life." Rowan exhaled slowly, tension draining from his shoulders. But then, the judge reached the final page of Mara's binder. Her brows knitted. This is troubling," she murmured. Harper stiffened. "What is it?" The judge looked up, eyes sharp. "Miss Sullivan, were you aware your father filed a petition before this hearing?" Harper's blood turned to ice. "He claims to be seeking emergency guardianship." Rowan stepped forward. "Your Honor, that man—" The judge lifted her hand. "I haven't ruled yet, but I will say this. The petition includes a sworn statement with accusations against Miss Sullivan." Harper's pulse thundered. "Accusations?" The judge closed the file. "And the person who submitted supporting testimony is someone you know." Harper's breath trembled. "Mr. Maddox," the judge said, "please step forward." Cole rose from his seat slowly, as if dragged upward by an invisible weight. For the first time since the hearing began, he looked uncertain, not furious, not arrogant, but genuinely rattled. Harper watched him approach the stand, her pulse hammering. Whatever he had done, whatever lies he had told, she felt the walls closing in again. The judge adjusted her glasses. "Mr. Maddox, you submitted sworn testimony supporting Patrick Sullivan's petition for guardianship. Do you confirm this?" Cole cleared his throat. "Yes, Your Honor." Mara's jaw tightened. "And in your statement, The judge continued, "You described Miss Sullivan as emotionally unstable, reckless, and unfit for parental judgment." Harper flinched at the words, though she kept her face still. Cole added quickly, "Your Honor, I was concerned for the children. She refused to let me see them. Because you signed away your parental rights," the judge snapped. Cole faltered. Rowan looked ready to leap over the table. Mara stepped forward. "Your Honor, we request permission to cross-examine." "Granted," the judge said. Mara approached Cole slowly, methodically. "Mr. Maddox, you claim Harper is unstable. What evidence do you have?" Cole hesitated. "She fainted during labor." "Due to blood loss," Mara cut in. "Caused by a medically dangerous pregnancy, not instability." Cole's jaw flexed. "She made poor choices, such as?" "She didn't tell me she was pregnant with triplets until after her second scan." Harper closed her eyes in pain. She had waited because she wanted to be sure the babies would survive before he crushed her hope. Mara's voice sharpened. "And yet you also told paramedics she wasn't your wife, that she was some woman pretending to trap you. Do you deny this?" Cole's face drained. Whispers rippled through the courtroom. The judge frowned. "Is this true?" Cole stammered. I was misinformed. Verena told me." "Ah, yes," Mara said. "Verena Lowe, currently under investigation for data tampering and medical fraud." Cole swallowed hard. "And Patrick Sullivan," Mara added, turning toward the judge, "a man who abandoned his minor child, who committed identity theft inside a hospital, and who attempted to access restricted medical areas illegally. This is the man Mr. Maddox is supporting for guardianship?" The judge's expression hardened. "Mr. Maddox, do you understand how damaging this looks?" Cole straightened suddenly, desperation turning into anger. "I was manipulated," he shouted. "Harper lied to me for years. She knew I couldn't have kids." "Incorrect," Rowan said through clenched teeth. "Your fertility was normal. The record was altered." The judge glared. Mr. Maddox approached the bench. Cole stumbled forward. The judge lowered her voice, low enough that only the closest could hear, but the tension was palpable. "You abandoned your wife during a life-threatening labor. You attempted to enter a neonatal unit unauthorized. You collaborated with a man under active investigation, and you are still trying to strip a mother of her newborns." Her tone sharpened. "Your credibility is non-existent." Cole's eyes widened, panic finally breaking through his arrogance. She raised her voice again for the record. "I am ordering a full criminal investigation into your actions and your involvement with Patrick Sullivan." A gasp swept the courtroom. Harper felt her breath return in a slow, shaky wave. Cole sank backward into his chair, hands trembling. The judge turned pages again, scanning the documents. "This petition from Patrick Sullivan is based on forged timelines, unsupported allegations, and false claims of neglect. It is hereby..." Before she could finish, the courtroom doors burst open. A bailiff hurried inside, whispering urgently into the judge's ear. Her expression shifted, confusion, then alarm. She rose. "Miss Sullivan, Dr. Hale, you need to come with us immediately." Harper's heart slammed into her ribs. "What happened?" The judge looked directly at her, voice grave. "It's the babies." Rowan's hand gripped the back of Harper's chair. The judge continued. "They've gone missing from the NICU." Harper didn't remember how she got from the courtroom to the hospital. One moment she was staring at the judge's pale face, the next she was sprinting through the hospital corridors, her breath coming in raw, jagged bursts. Her body moved faster than thought, faster than fear, faster than Rowan calling her name as he raced behind her. Her babies were missing. Gone. Vanished from the NICU, the safest place in the building. Security alarms blared overhead, and red lockdown lights pulsed across the ceiling. Staff rushed past them, frightened and confused. Voices echoed. "Check all exits. Lock down the elevators. No one gets out without clearance." Harper's heart hammered against her ribs, ready to shatter. "This can't be happening," she whispered. "Not my babies. Not again." Rowan reached her side, gripping her shoulders. "Harper, listen to me. They're alive. If someone wanted to hurt them, they wouldn't have taken them. We'll find them." But his voice trembled, just barely, and that terrified her more. A head nurse hurried over, tablet shaking in her hands. "We reviewed the camera feed. The triplets were removed by someone wearing scrubs, mask, cap, gloves, full uniform." "Can you see their face?" Rowan demanded. "No, but we tracked them through 3 hallways before the cameras went dark." "Dark?" Harper's voice cracked. What do you mean dark? Someone disabled them manually. Rowan swore under his breath. Harper pressed her palms to her forehead, fighting back panic. Who would do this? Cole's in court, Verena's in custody, Elena was escorted out. The nurse hesitated. We found this in one of the bassinets. She handed Harper a folded note. Harper's blood ran cold as she opened it. If you want them back, come alone. No signature, no instructions, just a demand soaked in threat. Rowan grabbed the note, jaw clenched. This is a trap. You're not going anywhere alone. Before Harper could respond, security radios crackled with frantic voices. Suspect sighted, northwest wing, carrying 2 infant carriers, moving toward the staff loading dock. Harper gasped. That's the old wing. Hardly anyone uses it, Rowan cursed, because it has private exits. They ran, faster than she thought her legs could move after childbirth, faster than logic, faster than fear. Down the hall, through double doors, into the dim, echoing corridor where fluorescent lights flickered above like nervous eyes. As they reached the end of the hall, a security guard sprinted toward them. Dr. Hale, Miss Sullivan, we found the 3rd carrier near the utility closet, empty but unharmed. Harper's knees almost buckled. Empty? Where's my baby? Tracks lead outside, the guard said, into the loading dock alley. Harper shoved past him, barreling through the exit door into the icy air. Her breath turned to vapor instantly, and then she froze. A car engine roared to life in the alley, a black SUV, rear doors open, 2 infant carriers inside. Rowan yelled, Harper, stay back. But she stumbled forward, screaming, my babies. The SUV's headlights flared. Someone inside turned toward her. A silhouette, broad shoulders, a familiar outline that made Harper's heart stop. Her father. Patrick Sullivan. Still gripping one of the carriers, eyes hollow, desperate. But it was the 2nd figure, seated in the driver's seat, that made Rowan curse aloud. Cole. He looked right at Harper, expression twisted in something between panic and determination. Harper, he shouted over the engine. We're taking them somewhere safe? Safe. From her. Harper lunged forward. Rowan grabbed her arm. The SUV shot backward, tires screeching. And then, someone else stepped out from the shadows behind the SUV, raising a weapon. The split second before the weapon fired felt like the world was holding its breath. Harper froze. Rowan yanked her behind him, and the SUV screeched sideways as the gunshot cracked through the alley. The bullet struck the pavement inches from the back tire. Harper screamed. Patrick ducked inside the vehicle. Cole slammed the accelerator. But the shooter wasn't aiming at Harper, or the babies. He was aiming at the tires. Security burst through the loading dock at the same time, drawn by the shot. The SUV fishtailed, tires blown, crashing violently into the metal railing. Doors flung open. Patrick stumbled out with the infant carrier clutched to his chest. Cole crawled out on the driver's side, dazed but scrambling to grab the 2nd carrier. Give me my children, Harper cried, sprinting forward as Rowan and security followed. But before anyone reached them, Patrick collapsed onto his knees, not from fear, but exhaustion. His breath came shallow, labored, his face gray. He held the carrier out with trembling hands. Take him, Harper, he whispered, please. Harper stopped in front of him. The desperation in his eyes, for the first time, wasn't selfish. It wasn't manipulative. It was human. She took the carrier gently. Patrick bowed his head. I just wanted time. I thought I could fix what I broke. Harper swallowed the ache forming in her throat. Hurting my children doesn't fix anything. Patrick nodded, tears falling. I know. I'm sorry for all of it. Security arrived, helping him to his feet as he surrendered without resistance. His final words were a whisper. You're stronger than I ever deserved. Meanwhile, Cole tried to run, even with one of his own children in his arms. Rowan lunged, tackling him before he could escape the alley. The baby carrier rolled safely to Harper's feet as security swarmed Cole. You're done, Rowan growled. It's over. Cole thrashed, shouting, she took everything from me. She poisoned my life. But no one listened, because everyone finally saw him for who he truly was. He was arrested on the spot for kidnapping, conspiracy, medical interference, and endangerment of infants. Harper stood shaking, the cold air biting her skin, but her heart steady as she held 2 carriers close. The 3rd child was brought out moments later by a nurse who had sprinted to safety with him when the alarm sounded. All 3 babies, alive, safe, breathing. She fell to her knees, sobbing, relief breaking her open. Rowan knelt beside her, arms engulfing her, forehead pressed gently to hers. "You did it," he whispered. "You protected them. You won." Harper looked at him, really looked, and saw not the doctor who saved her life, not the guardian who stepped in when the world fell apart, but the man who had held her steady every time she nearly broke. Later that week, in a peaceful courtroom far from chaos, the judge granted Harper permanent full custody. Cole's parental rights were terminated. Patrick voluntarily renounced any claim to the children, leaving quietly to face the consequences of his actions and his illness. Elena was charged as an accomplice. Verena faced sentencing for medical fraud. Justice, finally, had a shape. Months passed. Spring arrived in New York, softening the city with sunlight. Harper pushed a triple stroller through Central Park, the wind brushing her cheeks. Her baby slept peacefully, bundled in pastel blankets. Rowan walked beside her, holding her hand, not out of necessity, not out of protection, but out of something deeper, something chosen. "Harper," he said softly, stopping near the cherry blossoms, "I don't want to replace what you lost. I just want to build what comes next." Her heart swelled. She stepped closer, tears warm against the cool air. "Rowan, I want that too." Under the gentle bloom of spring, their lips met, not as rescuer and rescued, but as two people who had fought through darkness to find each other. The past no longer chased her. The future no longer frightened her. Her family, her real family, was right here. And for the first time in her life, Harper Sullivan finally felt whole. So our story has finally come to an end. And if you're still here with me, right now, in this exact moment, it means something in this journey touched your heart in its own quiet way. Maybe it reminded you of your own strength. Maybe it reminded you of the storms you once walked through. Or maybe it simply showed you that healing is possible, even after everything feels broken. You know, the Stoics used to say, the obstacle is the way. And Harper's story is proof of that. Every betrayal, every heartbreak, every loss, none of it stopped her. It shaped her. As Marcus Aurelius wrote, what stands in the way becomes the way. She didn't rise because life was easy. She rose because she refused to stay where pain left her. And my friend, yes, you watching right now, maybe you're carrying your own battle too. Maybe you're standing at a crossroads. Just remember, your story isn't over. You're allowed to choose a new chapter. If this journey meant something to you, even a little, I'd love for you to like this video, share it with someone who needs strength today, and subscribe so we can walk through more stories, more healing together. You're not alone, and I'm grateful you're here.